Hi everyone, this is Albertino here again from Cornerstone Laser. Today I'm here with episode number 7 in my Lasers for Beginners series, and today I'm going to be showing you how to align engravings with round or square surfaces. So as you can see in front of you, I've engraved some images on some round discs because my laser can't particularly or necessarily cut this thickness of material. I've had it cut elsewhere, and I've then aligned them in my laser and then engraved it. So you might want to do this with round discs, as you can see over here, or maybe if you want to align it on a cutting board or some surface that's already been cut or available. I'm going to show you how to do that in today's video. So let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to show you firstly how to align your piece to a square piece of material, and then secondly I'll show you how to align it to a round piece of material. Now they're slightly different in what you're doing, and so I'll first start with the square one because it's slightly easier. So you'll see in the laser bed at the moment I've got a square piece of material. It's an old board, that could be a cutting board or whatever the case is, and I know that the size is 180 millimeters by 180 millimeters. What I always do is I always frame it so that you've got something to align it to. So I can create a new rectangle and I can make the width 180 by 180. And then I know that that equals the size of my square, and then I know I want to align it to the 0, 0 position. So for me, at this point in time, for my machine, that's the top left position. So you can see that indicates where I'm aligning it relative to. I'm aligning the top left position to the 0, 0, which is my home position. So that represents the square or the word piece. Now I don't necessarily want to engrave that, so I just want to know that I've got something to align it to. The second thing I put inside is what I actually want to engrave. So this could be a picture, an image, a photograph, or whatever the case is. For now, or for today's demonstration, I'm just going to do something simple like a rocket, just so that you can see how this actually works. Now what's important is that this rocket needs to be on a different layer than the bit that you're engraving. So you can see I've got a couple of layers over here. So the first one would have been my engraving, my board. The second one is this engraving over here. You can see this engraving, this particular one has 2 layers, and I know that everything must be aligned. So because I don't want to actually engrave the square, which represents the part that I'm engraving to, I switch the output off, which means that will not be engraved. That's just there for reference. The other thing that's important to note is you're going to want to align this. So you either align it to an edge, typically you would align it to a center, you could align it to various different things, and Lightburn actually has a couple of neat tools to be able to do that. So what I most often do is, it's important that you do this in the correct sequence. So normally if you select your piece that you want to align first, and then you hold Control, and you select the piece that you want to align it to, and then you click it. If you go up here, you can center it vertically. You can see it moves the rocket and not the board representation. And I can also align it horizontally, and again it moves the rocket but not the board. So if we do that again in a different sequence, so let's say for instance I click the board first, then I hold down Control and I click the rocket, and I do the same thing, you'll see it actually moves the board relative to the rocket, and that's not what we want to do. So this sequence is actually quite important. So the sequence is you move the piece that you want to move, and then hold Control, and then you click secondly the piece you want to align it to, and then you align it either horizontally or vertically. If your center is your starting point, you can always just do that, so you know that it's in the center. So the 2 part centers are now aligned, and then with these position indicators you can move it up, down, left or right, or whatever the case may be. So that gives you a couple of options on how to align it. So, and you can see that that's relatively simple. So now I know exactly where this rocket is going to be relative to my piece. Now there's something else that Lightburn makes it quite interesting to do, which is like a GPS positioner, and you can say where does the machine think that this corner is going to be, basically. And if I click on it and I move it, then the machine will actually go to the location where it thinks that is on your board. And if you make sure that that is actually the location on your board, then you're actually in a pretty good position. The second thing that you can do is to frame it. So that's a standard framing tool, and it's basically just going to go around and frame the item and make sure that that's actually on the piece that you want it. Now again, bear in mind that this needs to be set to absolute coordinates, and absolute coordinates means that it's relative to your starting position, not that whatever position the laser head was in when you started the engrave. Right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check our settings. So I know that for this material, my ideal settings are 2100 millimeters per minute and 55%. And I know that it's going to be for both layers. The other thing I normally just check is how long is it going to take to engrave. Now this I know is a line engrave, so it should be relatively quick. And you can see it's only 13 seconds, which is great. So the other thing that I would have checked previously is the height. So I know that the height is actually correct. And that's because I would have said it previously. So the three things I normally run to before I hit start. Remember, once you hit start, then there's not much you can do once it starts engraving if you've messed it up or put it in the wrong position. So I check the height, I check the settings, and I check the coordinate system. So I'm happy with everything, and I'm just going to hit start and see where it goes. So as you can see, basically placed it perfectly in the center as we would have expected. So it's a good result. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to do the circular ones. So it's very similar to the square in that you create a template to be able to do this. Now I've got a pre-existing template that I use for baby milestone discs. So I've got a couple of discs that are pre-cut, and then basically I put it on a template and then I engrave them consistently. And the intent is that it should be really quick and easy to align them. So I've got again a backing board that I've used for previous, and I've marked and indicated the top left, which I know that I always need to align this corner to the top left to make sure that I get consistent results. I've already indicated the diameter of the circles that I would use, which obviously aligns the actual diameter of the circle that I'll be using, or that I've pre-cut, and I've put as many of them on this backing board as I could fit. And then I've pre-aligned all of the items that I would like to engrave on each of these discs separately to that, in a similar way that I've done previously. So we don't need to do all of them. I just wanted to show you two of them, so I'm just going to delete these, and then because this will take too long to engrave, I'm just going to delete that as well. But it's quite important that you ensure that the circles don't actually move from their locations, because otherwise it's not going to match your template. So I'm just going to put something simpler over here. So another trick is if you want to rotate something and hold down shift, then it actually snaps to angles, and so you make sure that it's always perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal. I'm just going to resize it to make sure that it goes in there. I also need to make sure that this is actually a different layer. You can see everything is now one layer. I need to make sure that this is on a different layer, otherwise it's not going to engrave it. On this one I'm going to just increase the power to about 80%, and then again I want to align it to this circle. So I click on the item I want to align or want to move, I hold down Control and I click on the item I want to align it to, and I'm going to align it vertically and horizontally, and I know that the centers are now matched. And then I'm just going to click on this again, Control or copy, and then paste, and then I'm going to do the same thing there. So hold down Control, align vertically and horizontally above your uncle. Alright, so now if I click on the preview, I know that these two, it should only be engraving the Batman logos. I know that this is going to take about 12 seconds, which is right where I need it to be. If it's well longer than that, then you can probably look over here and make sure that it's probably a full instead of a line. So in this case, because I'm just showing you, I'm going to do that. So what I would then do is I would take the discs. I've already preset the height for these discs, and I make sure that I align it to the circles. And then as a final check, I use this little locator button here, and I click somewhere in the horizontal axis, probably at the furthest point. And then I do the same thing in the vertical. And if it goes to where I expect it to go, then I know that everything else should be aligned. Alright, so if we run through our final check again, so the height I've already preset, so I know that that's correct. Check that the settings are correct, and I know that the coordinate system is absolute coordinates. and if there's nothing else, then ready to go. And there you go. That was a fairly simple example on some scrap wood, but you get the idea. So you can scale this up or down as you need to. What's also very helpful is that you've got a grid in the back. So if I remove this, you probably would have seen it in previous videos already, but I've also engraved the grid on the back of my backing plate, and it's important that that grid never moves relative to your laser, because otherwise everything's going to be out. At the very least, it's probably good to make a point in the whatever area your machine homes to, so that you've got a consistent point that you can align things to every single time. So that brings it today, or an end to today's video. I hope this was helpful to you. I'd really appreciate if you guys can leave a like and subscribe. It will really help me to make more videos, and also add to the comments things that you would like, or subjects that you'd like to learn more about in the future. Thank you. Goodbye.